The house on Willow Lane had been empty for years. The windows were boarded up, the lawn overgrown, and a for sale sign stood crooked at the edge of the driveway, its letters faded by time. No one in town wanted it. Not after what happened inside. People whispered about it in hushed voices. Some said they saw lights flickering at night, others swore they heard strange noises, footsteps when no one was there, muffled screams that carried in the wind. Most called it superstition. But on the evening of October 12, 2019, a frantic 911 call shattered the eerie silence surrounding the house. "Something's wrong. Please, send someone. My brother, he's inside, but he's not answering." The caller's voice was shaky, desperate. The dispatcher asked for details, but before they could get a response, the call abruptly cut off. Silence. By the time Officer Darren Cole arrived at the scene, darkness had settled over Willow Lane. The street lights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows. Cole's gut told him something was wrong. The house had a presence, an unsettling weight in the air, as if it was watching him. He stepped onto the porch. The wooden planks creaked under his boots. He noticed the front door was slightly ajar, moving gently in the wind. "Hello? Police?" No answer. His radio crackled, but he barely heard it. The air was thick, heavy, carrying a strange metallic scent. And then he saw it. A trail of dark red footprints leading down the hallway. Cole swallowed hard and stepped inside. The entryway was coated in dust, the air stale. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating old furniture covered in white sheets. Everything looked untouched, except for the footprints. They led toward the living room. Cole followed them cautiously. The dim glow of his flashlight reflected off the hardwood floor, revealing something else, drag marks. His pulse quickened. As he rounded the corner, his light landed on a motionless figure lying on the floor. A man, mid-30s, sprawled on his back, eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Cole's training kicked in. He crouched beside the body and checked for a pulse. Nothing. But something was off. There was no visible wound, no sign of struggle. Just a terrified expression etched onto the man's face. A sudden noise from upstairs made him freeze. A soft creak. Someone was up there. Cole stood, his hand tightening around his gun. He slowly made his way toward the staircase, every step making the old wood groan beneath his weight. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched before him, dark and silent. Several doors lined the walls, all slightly ajar. And then, he heard it. A whisper. It was faint, barely audible, but it was there. He turned toward the sound, his flashlight flickering slightly. The whisper grew louder. Two voices. Talking. Muttering. But there was something strange about them. They weren't speaking English. Cold dread crawled down Cole's spine. He reached the last door on the left, the source of the voices. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he slowly pushed it open. The room was empty. Except for one thing. A single wooden chair, placed in the center of the room. Facing the wall. And sitting in that chair was a tape recorder. It was still playing. Cole's breath hitched. He reached out and pressed the stop button. Silence filled the room. But then, a whisper. Directly behind him. Cole spun around, his flashlight beam sweeping across the empty hallway. No one was there. His radio crackled. "Cole, do you copy?" He swallowed hard and pressed the button. "Yeah. I'm here." We traced the 911 call. It was made from inside the house. His blood ran cold. "That's not possible," he whispered. "There's no phone here." A long pause. Then, "Get out of there. Now." The line went dead. Cole didn't hesitate. He turned on his heel and rushed toward the stairs. But as he descended, something changed. The air shifted. The dust-covered furniture below was no longer covered. The lights were on. The house looked lived in. And then, he heard it. Soft footsteps. Coming from the living room. He reached the bottom of the stairs, his gun raised. "Who's there?" No response. His eyes scanned the room, and then he saw it. The dead man was no longer lying on the floor. He was sitting upright on the couch, staring directly at Cole. A slow, chilling smile spread across his face. And in the dim light of the room, Cole saw something in his hand. A phone. The same phone used to make the 911 call. The screen was still lit. The call timer read, midnight. And then, the line disconnected. Officer Darren Cole stood frozen, his breath shallow, his pulse pounding like a war drum in his ears. The dead man, the same man he had just confirmed as lifeless minutes ago, was now sitting upright on the couch, staring directly at him. The phone in the man's hand, the one used to make the 911 call, was still glowing. And then, without warning, the call disconnected. A shiver rolled down Cole's spine. His instincts screamed at him to run, to get out of this cursed house and never look back. But years of training held him in place. He took a slow step forward, his gun raised. "Sir?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Can you hear me?" The man didn't blink. Didn't move. His eyes were vacant, hollow like a doll's. Cole swallowed hard, scanning the room. Nothing had changed, except now. The air felt thicker, like he was wading through something invisible. He stepped closer, keeping his distance but lowering his gun slightly. And then, the man tilted his head. Not in a normal, human way. A slow, unnatural, jerking movement, like something mimicking a human gesture but not quite understanding how it worked. Cole's stomach twisted. That's when he saw it. A thin trickle of blood leaking from the man's mouth, pooling at the corner of his lips. It dripped onto his shirt, soaking the fabric. But his chest wasn't rising. He wasn't breathing. Cole's grip tightened on his weapon. "Sir, I need you to stay where you are." The man smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It was wrong. And then, the lights flickered. For half a second, the entire house was plunged into darkness. When the lights came back on, the man was gone. The couch was empty. The phone lay on the floor, the screen shattered. Cole's heart slammed against his ribs. He spun around, his flashlight beam sweeping the room. Nothing. He backed away, his hands slick with sweat. His radio crackled again. "Cole, are you there?" He pressed the button. "Yeah. There's something wrong here. Get out. Right now." Cole's mouth went dry. "What's going on?" The dispatcher's voice was shaky. "We traced the victim's identity. His name was Mark Dempsey. But, Cole..." A pause. "Mark Dempsey has been dead for over 3 years." A chill spread through Cole's body. "He died in that house. Same room you found him in." Cole's blood ran cold. "That's not possible," he whispered. "Listen to me," the dispatcher said. "You're not alone in that house. Get out." Cole turned toward the door. Every muscle in his body was screaming at him to move. And then, the floor creaked behind him. He whipped around, gun raised. Nothing. But the air was wrong. Heavy. Electric. And then he saw it. A shadow moving at the top of the stairs. Not walking. Not stepping. Gliding. Cole's breath hitched. He took a step back. The figure was tall, draped in darkness, its form shifting like smoke. It had no face, just a black void where eyes should be. And it was watching him. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, the whispering returned. But this time, it was all around him. Low, raspy voices circling him, pressing into his ears. He could feel cold breath on his neck. A deep, guttural voice echoed from the walls. "You shouldn't be here." Cole fired. The gunshot rang out like thunder, shattering the silence. The figure disappeared. But the voices remained. Something moved behind him. Before he could react, something grabbed his wrist, an ice-cold grip, clawing at his skin. And then, darkness. Detective Rachel Evans stood at the entrance of the house, staring at the front door. The crime scene tape fluttered in the wind. The entire neighborhood was still talking about what had happened. Officer Darren Cole had been found unconscious on the floor, his gun still in his hand. When backup arrived, they found him alone. But the strangest part? The body of Mark Dempsey was never recovered. The phone was gone. The 911 call log was erased. And Cole? He didn't remember anything after the lights went out. Just one thing. One final whisper. It's not over. Detective Rachel Evans exhaled slowly, gripping her notepad as she stepped inside the Dempsey house. The air was thick. Stale. Like no one had lived here in decades. But that was impossible. Just 2 nights ago, Officer Darren Cole had been found unconscious right here in the living room. He had called in a dead body. But there was nobody. No evidence. Like nothing had ever happened. The only thing they had was Cole's broken memory, and the fear in his eyes when he woke up. Rachel wasn't the kind of detective who believed in ghost stories. She believed in facts. But something about this case felt wrong. She walked deeper into the house, her flashlight cutting through the shadows. The furniture was covered in dust. The kitchen clock was frozen at 9:47 p.m. That exact time had shown up in the 911 call logs, right before the call had mysteriously vanished. Her partner, Detective Sam Mercer, followed closely behind. "Place feels like a tomb," Mercer muttered. Rachel didn't respond. She was fixated on something else. The couch. The one where Cole swore he saw Mark Dempsey's dead body sitting upright. Now, it was perfectly clean. No sign of a struggle. But the longer she stared, the more a feeling crawled up her spine, like she was being watched. Rachel pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the living room. The moment the flash went off, the lights flickered. Mercer swore under his breath. Rachel checked her phone screen. Her heart stopped. The photo she had just taken. There was someone sitting on the couch. A man. Dressed in dark clothing. Head tilted. Eyes hollow. But there was no one there. Rachel's breath hitched. She turned the phone toward Mercer. "Tell me you see this." Mercer's face paled. "What the hell?" Rachel looked back at the couch. Still empty. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She tapped her phone, zooming in on the image. But then, the photo disappeared. Gone. As if it had never been taken. Rachel's hands trembled slightly. She wasn't a superstitious person. But she knew one thing for certain. Something was in this house. And it didn't want them there. A loud bang echoed from down the hall. Mercer spun around. That came from the basement. Rachel hesitated. She hated basements. They were always bad news. Mercer grabbed the doorknob and twisted. Locked. Rachel glanced at the keyhole. Looks like it's been sealed for years. Mercer pulled out his lockpick kit, muttering, "Guess we're breaking in." As he worked, Rachel couldn't shake the unease creeping over her. Then, the house went silent. Too silent. Rachel turned and felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. Her body went rigid. Slowly, she turned her head. There was nothing behind her. But when she looked down, her breath caught. A single, wet footprint on the wooden floor. Directly behind her. And then, the basement door creaked open on its own. Rachel and Mercer exchanged wary glances before stepping inside. The basement stairs groaned under their weight. The air grew colder with each step. Rachel's flashlight beam cut through the thick darkness, revealing old storage boxes and rusted furniture. But as she reached the bottom step, her foot sank into something wet. She jerked her light downward. The floor was covered in water. Dark, murky, and reeking of something foul. Rachel's stomach twisted. Mercer frowned. The hell is this? They stepped forward, the water sloshing around their ankles. And then, Rachel's flashlight flickered. The shadows shifted. Something moved in the corner. A figure. Crouched. Motionless. Rachel lifted her gun. "Who's there?" The figure didn't respond. She took a step closer, her heart hammering. "I said." The figure lunged. A blur of darkness, water splashing as it surged forward. Rachel fired. Bang! Bang! The basement erupted in chaos. The figure screeched, a sound that didn't belong to anything human. And then, it vanished. The water stilled. The basement fell silent again. Rachel's hands shook around her gun. She turned to Mercer, only to find him staring at something on the wall. His face was drained of color. Rachel followed his gaze. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Etched into the concrete wall, written in dark, wet streaks. "Don't trust him." Rachel's pulse thundered in her ears. "Don't trust who?" she whispered. But deep down, she already knew the answer. Darren Cole. Rachel sat in her car, staring at the police station entrance. Darren Cole had been released from the hospital. He claimed to remember nothing. But Rachel wasn't buying it. Something had happened in that house. Something had followed them out. She took a deep breath and grabbed her notepad. Time to get some answers. But as she reached for the door handle, her phone vibrated. She looked down. Unknown caller. Rachel frowned. She answered. "Hello?" A few seconds of static. Then, a deep, familiar voice. "Detective Evans. You shouldn't have come back." The call was cut out. Rachel's hands clenched into fists. She stared at the station doors, her reflection in the glass looking almost off. Like something was watching her from the inside. And as she finally stepped out of the car, a single thought whispered in the back of her mind. What if this case wasn't meant to be solved? Detective Rachel Evans sat at her desk, staring at the case files spread before her. Her hands hovered over the reports, but her mind was stuck on one thing. The phone call. "Detective Evans, you shouldn't have come back." The voice was unmistakable. Darren Cole. But that didn't make sense. Cole had been in the hospital. He barely remembered what happened in the Dempsey house. Or so he claimed. Rachel exhaled slowly, forcing herself to focus. There had to be a logical explanation for what was happening. There had to be. Mercer walked into the precinct, tossing a flash drive onto Rachel's desk. Pulled this from the traffic cams near the Dempsey house. Rachel plugged it in and fast-forwarded through the footage. The night of the incident, Officer Cole's squad car was parked in front of the house at 9:42 p.m. At 9:47 p.m., the camera glitched. Rachel leaned in. "Did you see that?" Mercer nodded. "Yeah. Looks like the footage cuts out for exactly 15 seconds. Rachel rewound, playing the clip frame by frame. Her breath caught. Just before the footage glitched, there was a shadow behind Cole's car. A tall, dark silhouette. And then, it was gone. Rachel and Mercer exchanged looks. "Someone else was there," she murmured. Mercer's jaw tightened. "Or something." Rachel pushed open the door to interrogation room 2. Darren Cole sat inside, his eyes hollow, his hands clasped on the table. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Rachel sat across from him, folding her hands. "Tell me about the night you went into the Dempsey house." Cole hesitated. His fingers twitched. "I already told you. I don't remember." Rachel slid the traffic cam photo in front of him. The shadow behind his car. His face was drained of color. "Darren," she pressed, "who's with you?" His breathing quickened. I don't know. I swear, I don't." The lights flickered. Cole's eyes snapped up, wild, panicked. He pushed back from the table. No. No, 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 it's here. Rachel's blood ran cold. What's here? Cole gripped his head, his voice barely a whisper. It followed me. Mercer leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Evans, we need to wrap this up. Guy's losing it. Rachel ignored him. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Darren, listen to me. What followed you? Cole's breath hitched. He slowly raised his head, and Rachel's stomach twisted. His eyes weren't just tired. They were black, like the pupils had swallowed the color whole. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Darren. He opened his mouth to speak. The room plunged into darkness. The air grew heavy. The kind of heavy that pressed against your ribs, that made your skin crawl with an unseen presence. Rachel felt Mercer shift beside her. What the hell? And then, a low, distorted whisper filled the air. Rachel's hands clenched into fists. She couldn't make out the words, but the sound alone sent a chill down her spine. The lights flashed back on. And Darren Cole was gone. Rachel shot to her feet. Where the hell did he go? The chair was empty. No handcuffs. No sign of struggle. Like he had never been there at all. Mercer cursed, rushing to the hallway. We had 2 guards outside the door. No way he just... Rachel's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She swallowed hard and answered. Who is this? Silence. Then, a whisper. You're next. The line went dead. That night, Rachel sat alone in her apartment, files spread across her kitchen table. She traced the timeline again and again. The Dempsey house. Officer Cole's disappearance. The shadow in the traffic cam footage. And then, she noticed something she had missed before. All of the timestamps. 9:47 p.m. Rachel's pulse quickened. She grabbed a case file from 20 years ago. A missing persons report. Mark Dempsey. Last seen at 9:47 p.m. Her hands shook as she reached for another file. The original Dempsey murders. The victims were all found at exactly 9:47 p.m. Rachel felt her stomach twist. This wasn't just a case. It was a pattern. And whatever was happening, it wasn't over. Rachel Evans sat motionless, staring at the case file spread across her table. Her mind raced, her eyes darting over every detail, crime scene photos, handwritten witness statements, eerie police transcripts. But her gaze kept returning to one thing. 9:47 p.m. Every disappearance, every murder, every unexplained event linked to the Dempsey house had happened at the same time. Darren Cole vanished at 9:47 p.m. The last 911 call from the Dempsey family was placed at 9:47 p.m. Every report of lights flickering, of voices whispering in the house, had been at 9:47 p.m. Rachel swallowed hard, a lump forming in her throat. This isn't a coincidence. Her phone buzzed. She jumped, the sound shattering the eerie silence of her apartment. She hesitated before picking it up. Mercer's name flashed across the screen. She answered, her voice tight. Tell me you found something. His voice was low and grim. You need to get out of there. Rachel's stomach twisted. Why? There was a pause. Because your address just showed up in the system. Rachel's grip on the phone tightened. What do you mean? Mercer exhaled sharply. Dispatch got a 911 call from your apartment. Rachel's pulse quickened. That's not possible. I didn't call anyone. There was another long pause. Someone did. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The call came in at 9:47 p.m. Rachel's breath came in sharp, uneven gasps as she scanned her apartment. Everything was silent. Too silent. She reached for her gun, her fingers trembling as she edged toward the hallway. Mercer, I think someone's in here. A low creak sounded behind her. Rachel whirled around. Her kitchen chair had moved. She hadn't touched it. A bead of sweat slid down her temple. She stepped back, her gun raised. "If someone's here, show yourself." The lights flickered. Her phone screen glitched, black static, then a brief, distorted image. A face. Hollow eyes. A twisted smile. Her heart pounded. "Mercer." The line went dead. Her screen went completely black. Then, a single text message appeared. 9:47 p.m. Rachel's hands trembled as she turned toward her front door. And froze. A tall, dark shadow stood in the doorway. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching. Her throat went dry. She swallowed hard and tightened her grip on the gun. "Who are you?" Silence. The figure tilted its head. Rachel felt a shiver crawl down her spine. The shadow wasn't a person. It was something else. And then, it lurched forward. Rachel fired 3 shots. Bang! 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 The bullets passed through the figure like it wasn't even there. Then, darkness. A crushing, suffocating void wrapped around her. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. A voice whispered against her ear. "You were warned." Rachel's vision blurred. The room collapsed around her. And then, everything went black. 2 weeks later, Detective Mercer stood outside the Dempsey house, staring up at its hollow, lifeless windows. Rachel was gone. No trace of her. No body. No signs of struggle. Just like Darren Cole. Just like everyone before them. The only clue? Rachel's phone, left on the floor of her apartment. The last thing on the screen was the text message. 9:47 p.m. Mercer exhaled shakily, gripping his radio. "Dispatch, this is Detective Mercer. We have another case." Static crackled through the line. Then, a whisper. 9:47 p.m. Mercer's blood ran cold. He turned and saw a shadow standing in the doorway. 1 year later, a new family moved into the Dempsey house. A young couple and their 8-year-old son. The real estate agent had told them about the rumors, the stories, the vanishings, but they didn't believe in ghosts. That night, as they settled into their new home, the father glanced at the clock. 9:47 p.m. The lights flickered. And from the darkened hallway, a voice whispered, "You were warned."